Tom Sowell on diversity, quote, "If there is any place in the Guinness Book of World Records for words repeated the most often over the most years without one speck of evidence, diversity should be a prime candidate. Is diversity our strength or anybody's strength anywhere in the world? It has not been our diversity, but our ability to overcome the problems inherent in diversity and to act together as Americans that has been our strength."
If there's any place in the Guinness Book of World Records for words repeated the most often over the most years without one speck of evidence, diversity should be a prime candidate. Is diversity our strength or anybody's strength anywhere in this world? I have my thoughts on this, but I'm gonna let Mr. Thomas Sowell speak first.
Again, how did diversity come to be this kind of totem in society to which we must all...
Oh, it's applying the propaganda principles of Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, who said that, you know, people will believe any lie if it's big enough and told often enough and loud enough. And this lie has been told. If you look at, see, diversity is really another name of what used to be called balkanization. And they had to get rid of that because if you looked at the Balkans, you would see that the horrors that have gone on there have outstripped anything that has ever happened in the United States. Back in the 1970s, when I was running a research project in Washington on American ethnic groups, a Yugoslav scholar came by to visit me, and he said, "You think blacks and whites in America have a problem? The problems of blacks and whites in America is nothing compared to the problems of Serbs and Croats in Yugoslavia." And if you read the horrors that have occurred there, I'll just mention one: throwing people's babies in the air and catching them on bayonets and forcing the parents to watch it while it happens. I mean, we have not reached that point yet, even though we are headed in that direction.
I have to disagree with Mr. Thomas Sowell. I respect him, obviously, because I'm constantly checking him out and learning from him on a daily basis. But before I tie this in, I mean, I just want to say, if this type of content is something that you like, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, the notification bell, so that when we do release something, you are first to be notified. The reason why I say that we, first of all, don't compare your trauma with someone else's trauma. And just because your trauma has not reached someone else's trauma, your trauma is almost non-existent. It doesn't work that way. Other people's traumas are still there. It was so much stuff that went on in many things that people have gone through in this country that's just horrifying. But you don't want to compare. You don't want to diminish what you went through in your history simply because you can compare it to something else that's worse. That's how the whole victim mentality is in the African American neighborhoods. You wonder why they always have this victim way of thinking, is because they never feel like they have to do so much if the person down the street is doing way worse than them. They always, every single time they walk out their doors in the hood, they can name probably like 10 other people who are doing worse than them. And what that does is it makes them think that they're doing okay and they don't have to do anything more than what they're doing. And that right there just holds us back. Yes, the Vulcans went through what the Vulcans went through. Asians went through what they went through. Like, so many people went through things, but simply because somebody else went through something worse, that does not mean that you shouldn't look at your own history and and try to figure out, why did this happen? How can we change it? How can we be better and move on from there? So that right there, I don't particularly agree with. Now, if you understand something different, please feel free to let me know in the comments what you think.
Diversity is not their strength. The ability to deal with the problems of diversity, that is our strength.
All right.
Or was.
At the same time you're getting all this melding of diversity, there's an extremely narrow ideological conformity that's being enforced. So we have diversity in the way people look, the ethnic groups or from which they come, the parts of the country from which they come. But once you arrive, you'd better start thinking the way we do.
Yes. I still get emails from students, who say that, when they raise any issues that go against the professor's ideology, they just get ridiculed.
Let's say you're on the admissions committee at Harvard, and you're going to choose so many people. You're going to let people in for a variety of reasons. One is sheer academic merit. They scored 1,600 on their college boards. That's a good entry. They've got a brilliant academic and athletic background, and they happen to be a virtuoso violin player. Oh, yeah. And the violin player helps. Yeah. Or let's say they come from Nevada, and they don't have a lot of Nevadans at Harvard. And let's also say that they come from Sri Lanka. They don't have many people from Sri Lanka there. And let's also say that they also are African American, and that ought to be a factor in choosing from that pool. Maybe that's one of the considerations.
Because what?
Because diversity of a student body is a healthy factor.
I'm fascinated with the extent to which words, we're conditioned to react like Pavlov's dog to words. I hear diversity. Someone was asking
Don't make me look bad, Professor.
Someone today who was a trustee of a college was saying that they were going to pick a new college professor. I said, what you should do is have a stopwatch there and just count how long it is till each of the contestants says the word diversity. And the guy who says it, he's 35 minutes into the interview, and the other guy who says it, the first sentence, the guy who takes 35 minutes, he should be at the top of the list. The guy who said it in the first sentence should be at the bottom. Because the question
what's wrong with diversity? I don't get the point.
My point is that this is a word that has become magic. What does it mean, if anything? Are you saying to me that all black people are alike, therefore you've got to mix and match by race? It's not diverse unless it's diverse along these dimensions?
I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think that it would be different to have people of different kinds of experiences. And we mentioned Sri Lanka, didn't we? And and it'd be interesting to have some people with an Asian background. Wait, an Asian background, African American, people that come from Fifth Avenue and Park Avenue, as well as from Henderson, North Carolina. All of that would make a healthy student body.
I don't think that there should be race diversity. I think that there should definitely be class diversity. I definitely think there should be class diversity. I don't think the word diversity should be demonized at all. Honestly, I think the only reason why is not really a good look to Mr. Sowell is because he is a pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of man, and he believed that if you want it, you go get it. If you want it bad enough, then you need to figure out a way to get it, no matter where you come from. But I don't buy into that because everybody don't have the same opportunities. Everybody don't have the same material. When I was growing up, I played sports. I played every single sport you can. No, I didn't. I didn't play every sport you can name. But the ones that I did play, I played at the rec, and it was free for us to play. And the reason why is because it would keep us out of trouble. But the type of gloves that we used, the type of bats that we used when we played baseball were horrible. The type of gloves that we used when we were boxing were horrible. The type of mats that we flipped on in gymnastics were horrible. The type of the paddings that we had when we were playing football and everything were horrible. And it was all about the area we were in, not because we were black, but because of the class of the location where we was. We wasn't putting a whole bunch of money into society, so society didn't put a whole bunch of money into us. That's how that worked. Now, if it works some other type of way and you understand it from a more astute government background type of way, please feel free to let me know in the comments. But it shouldn't be a class. I mean, it shouldn't be a race diversity. It should definitely be a class diversity, because like I mentioned in one of my other videos before, until I started doing electrical apprenticeship work, I did not see a school with that many freaking computers in classrooms until I started working in a well-to-do area that just so happened to be PWI, predominantly white institutions, and it was computers everywhere. It was them Texas. Every single student had the Texas calculators that nobody in Ballou High School had. Ballou High School was in Southeast DC, right by 4th and MLK. Now, you know that they didn't have no daggone Texas calculators at all. And I know that's not what it's called. It's called something else. But we didn't have that. We didn't have that. So if you think about this, if you don't have the tools to be able to go as far as you can possibly go, you're not going to test 1,600. If you don't have the coaches and the staffs that are paid a certain amount and have the same type of education where they can teach you to be able to go as far as you can possibly go in basketball, football, baseball, whatever, then you're not going to have those things in place when you go to when you try to apply for these universities and whatnot. You're not. You're not. Unless you are the one anomaly, you're the one person in your whole city who's just so bad that, I mean, by bad, I mean great at a thing, that you get these opportunities to go to these schools that other classes, they're just filling up because they've been fortunate enough to attend high schools, middle schools, elementary schools that equip them to be able to attend the type of schools that Mr. Sowell taught at. So, yeah, I do believe that there should be diversity. Probably not race diversity, but racial diversity, but definitely class diversity. Because class diversity extends beyond race.
Well, as from Henderson, North Carolina, all of that would make a healthy student body.
You mean to tell me?
I don't think everybody ought to come from sons of Harvard graduates.
All right.
My daughters.
I like that. I don't think anybody should come from sons of Harvard graduates or sons of Yale graduates. Or, you know what I mean?
They're not always the best students.
No, that's right.
But all right.
Sons of Cornell students. I mean, graduates.
That argument, I think that doesn't make it. I slipped my point there for a minute.
Well, I mean, you have thought long and hard about this, and much longer than I have, and you bring to bear.
No, but wait. That's the theory. That's the theory. Unfortunately, the facts are quite different. In places like Harvard and Stanford and Cornell, what you have is the black son of the black doctor, who lived in the same neighborhood with the white son of the white doctor.
No, I got you.
And now you're giving me diversity because these two people are out in Winnetka or someplace.
No, not necessarily. They have scholarships that they offer to kids who are not the son of the
But now we're getting away from the whole racial thing. I'm saying the racial thing has been used as a proxy for something that is not a proxy for, because the vast majority of blacks who go to places like Harvard and Cornell and Stanford are not blacks from the ghetto. Those are blacks from out there. You know, they're from Malibu. You know, they're from Pacific Palisades. They're from Winnetka and so forth. And they're from the very same neighborhoods. They're from the very same neighborhoods as the whites are there. And so now you call it diversity because you see something with the naked eye.
Explain why multiculturalism, if you would, is bad.
I guess it starts from a false premise, which is that there's something that all cultures are equal in some undefinable sense, which has never been the case. I mean, some cultures are better at some things, worse at other things, and at particular times in history, one group's culture may be ascendant, and another time another group's. But what you almost never see is what they assume is a norm, namely all groups performing pretty much the same in all kinds of fields across the board. That you can go through centuries of history without finding a single example of that.
You say that assumption, in fact, holds different groups down. You write, quote, multiculturalism, like the caste system, paints people into the corner where they happen to have been born, but at least the caste system doesn't claim to benefit those at the bottom.
Absolutely. So when the multiculturalists say, for example, that the schools should not try to make black students speak standard English, the difference between speaking standard English and not speaking standard English can be huge in terms of your job, your careers, and all sorts of other things.
The key word among advocates of multiculturalism became diversity.
Yes.
Sweeping claims for the benefits of demographic and cultural diversity have prevailed without a speck of evidence being asked for or given. Name a few institutions in which diversity is championed without evidence.
Gosh, the question would be name one way where that isn't the case. I would say the whole Ivy League, Stanford, Berkeley.
Corporate America?
Yes. It's really miraculous almost. I mean, I can't think of a word that has gained such widespread use and which is utterly unchallenged without one speck of evidence. If you look at societies that are diverse, they have all they can do to avoid mutual bloodshed. I mean, India, for example, is very diverse, and you know
It barely coheres as a nation.
That's right. When India was given its freedom by Britain and split into India and Pakistan, I mean, the number of people slaughtered between Hindus and Muslims ran into the hundreds of thousands.
All right, so yeah, that was a good conversation, but it seems like Mr. Sowell is saying, look, you want to get in here, be good enough. Be good enough. To me, it comes off like be rich enough. Sorry, that's what it comes off of. I'm asked. Be rich enough. I don't agree with that. Because the only person, when you say the Ivy Leagues, who attend there? Who attend Ivy Leagues? Come on, guys, y'all know who attend Ivy Leagues. For the most part, you all know who attend Ivy Leagues. And I have no issue with them saying, okay, we need to be diverse up in here. We need to have 5% of the school where, you know, we can extend this to people who still test well, but, you know, need help here, you know, but they, in many ways, they are definitely good enough to get into these schools. Because if not, those are the only people that are running the world. And the only people that are running the world are the people who can afford to get in those schools. So then, of course, there's the same thing all over again. The people with the power run the world. And then you want to look at those people in those schools are predominantly what race? And that's why people are always saying that white people run the world. Don't know if that's the case. May not be at all. You know what I mean? May not be. But I think different classes need help sometimes, in my opinion. But who the hell am I? I don't know much about schooling. I'm not very studious. I dropped out of college after my first year and never went back. And I did it because I had a child my first year in college. And I grew up without a father. And I made sure that my children would not grow up without fathers in their house. I grew up without my mother in my house. I made sure that my children's mother will go back to school and finish her schooling. And I do whatever it takes. That's why I cook everything, I mean, for the most part, except for on, you know, for big meals. When it comes to holidays and whatnot, my wife gets busy. But for the most part, Monday through Sunday, I'm the cook, or I'm the one that's making sure everybody eat, because this is something that I put on my shoulders to make sure that she continues her education and finishes. Because as a black man, I didn't know how long I would be around. And I wanted to make sure that not only was she educated, but she was at the top of her class when it comes to her job and all of those things. Like, I got you, go do your thing. But for me, I'm at work, I'm at 2 jobs, I'm doing my thing to make sure that my kids have everything that they need as a father is supposed to provide their children. But because of that, I'm not very studious at all. I don't really pay attention to politics or any of that. Like, I pay attention to the here and now. What can I do? You know what I mean? Roll up my sleeves, let's get it done. That's what I pay attention to. And I do have an affinity for people who can't afford to be able to get into certain programs, because I was able to get into certain programs by simply being in the system. So, and it helped me. It helped me. But again, I want to hear what y'all got to say about this in the comments below. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I am Van. And now we are all the LFR family. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. Y'all have been amazing. Again, love y'all.